Good evening. I hereby call to order the action session of the Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, February 25th. You may notice that Superintendent Ferebee is not here in person with us this evening, but he is going to be participating in the meeting from Washington, D.C. We will now have the presentation of colors in the Pledge of Allegiance. The colors this evening will be posted by the Color Guard from Arsenal Tech High School. JROTC battalion members posting colors are Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Dustin Rogers, Cadet Major James Myers, Cadet Sergeant Major DeMonte Williams, Cadet Master Sergeant Marcus Tinner, Cadet Sergeant First Class Shelby Searcy. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Tessa Geese-King will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the presentation of colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard, order, colors, outward, face, forward, forward. Color guard, hold, order, color, prepare to pose. Oh. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. Inward. Head. Forward. March. March time. March. Color guard. Over. Outward. Face. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you to the JROTC battalion from Arsenal Technical High School. We will now have roll call. Secretary Eccles, will you please call the roll?
Please excuse my voice. Commissioner Arnold? Here. Commissioner Bentley? Here. Commissioner Cosby? Here. Commissioner Eccles? Present. Commissioner O'Connor?
Here.
Commissioner Odell? And President Sullivan.
Here. Thank you, Commissioner Eccles. We will now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Reviewing the proposed agenda, are there any requests for changes to the agenda as presented? Or any suggestions? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Having adopted the agenda, we will now proceed to section 2 of the agenda. If there are any groups in attendance that would like to be To be recognized, please rise and state your name and the organization that you are representing.
Blood Wash Christians for the troop of Louis Ferebee, John Lester Strength. There you go. Sorry.
Rhonda Cornett, President of the Indianapolis Education Association, representing the bargaining unit.
Thank you. Anyone else? Tonight we have a special recognition this evening for the work of the Peace Learning Center in William McKinley School number 39. School 39 would like to recognize Peace Learning Center for bringing peace-centered programming to students, staff, and families. The lesson plans are tailored for all audiences, even as young as pre-K. Peace Learning Center has facilitated staff professional development focused on helping students who have experienced trauma or other conflicts. The center has also supported peer mediators, training them on how to help students resolve conflict. Volunteers even facilitated several parent workshops which emphasized improving peaceful conflict resolution in the home. It is my pleasure to present Executive Director Tim Nation, Director of Engagement Jay Horan, and Director of Operations Tiffany Tibbett this certificate of recognition for Peace Learning Center. Thank you to all of the staff at Peace Learning Center. This evening, we will also be having a student performance provided by Alan Wright. Alan is a senior at Shortridge International Baccalaureate High School. Alan has been playing low brass instruments at Shortridge since 6th grade. He recently received a gold rating for his solo performance at the ISSMA Solo and Ensemble Contest held at Perry Meridian High School, and this Saturday will be performing at the State Music Contest to be held at North Central High School. Alan plans to attend IU Bloomington in the fall for studies in pre-chemistry with a goal of going to medical school and getting a degree in psychiatry. Alan will be performing his solo on the euphonium. Please welcome Alan Wright. It's a great job, Alan. Thank you very much. We will now move to commissioner comments. Does any commissioner wish to offer comments at this time? Commissioner Bentley?
I just wanted to, there was a meeting on Monday that the Butler-Tarkington Neighborhood Association in Midtown Indy hosted at the Martin Luther King Multi-Service Center to discuss the James Whitcomb Riley School 43. And it was a very good meeting. I mean, there's a lot of challenges at that school right now, but it was wonderful that it was a huge turnout. There were parents there, lots of the community partners who work at the school and volunteer at the school, and the administration from IPS did a presentation on some of the things they're going to be doing in the school through the end of the school year to provide some stability and leadership at the building. So it was, it was a great meeting, and I wanted to thank the two organizations for hosting, as well as the IPS administration for providing some really good information to families and community at that meeting. Thank you.
So we will now have comment of a general nature from the public. If you have signed up to speak. If you have indicated that you would like to speak on a particular topic on tonight's agenda, you will be called to the podium when that topic is before the board. So we have many speakers this evening, and so I'll remind our speakers that you are allowed 3 minutes to speak, and the time limit will be strictly enforced. Our board administrator will begin a timer when you begin, and I ask that you conclude your remarks when you hear the timer go off, please. Comments should be directed to the board collectively, should be respectful, and should not address a topic that might be of a confidential nature or that would compromise the impartiality of the board. Thank you. So we will begin with Rondalyn Cornett.
Good evening, school board members, Superintendent Ferebee on camera, wherever he's at. IEA has made the commitment of working collaboratively with IPS when it comes to teacher compensation. We reached a tentative agreement to bring beginning salaries up to a competitive level, and we also made minimal increases to other levels. Was the agreement perfect? No. Was it a start? Yes. We worked together. Now, with your supporting House Bill 1004, you're on your way to union busting. The intent of this bill would allow you to bypass the association and award bonuses to whatever teacher administrators deem to be in a hard-to-fill position. Let me just say, all positions are hard to fill positions. The intent of this bill is to pit teachers against each other. And when we pay new teachers more than already established teachers in the same level, we are starting a culture of contention among colleagues. We have heard and will continue to hear tonight from teachers, parents, and the community on how IPS is becoming a district of the have and the have-nots. And with this type of legislation, you will help some teachers begin to believe they are better than others. The intent of this bill will provide extra pay for a few teachers at the expense of most. This is not fair. The intent of House Bill 1004 and Senate Bill 10 is to destroy the partnership we have tried to build. One concern we face as a district in the recent years is our teachers leaving our district for better pay. And while you see these bills as a way to attract educators, other districts will see this as a way to poach our teachers. And we will still be in the same boat with a teacher shortage. With the intent of this legislation and your support of it, it brings me to a quote from Maya Angelou. When people show you who they are, believe them. Well, you're showing us who you are, so we will believe you. Next month, I plan to talk about student discipline. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Orlando.
Hello. I think you got my name wrong. It's Jay Hablando, but
Oh, I'm
that's
very
okay.
sorry.
It's okay. No, some of these things get lost in translation. Dr. Ferebee has already given several of our IPS schools away to charters, and the charterization of these schools leaves a lot of us out in the cold. Aside from the fact that they're only offering teachers for salaries from $40,000 to $43,000, and the fact that that leaves a lot of our vetted teachers out, saddens me. Members of my family went to IPS. I went to IPS. I've got a niece that's going to IPS right now. And to think that we're saying that we care about their futures while slowly selling their futures away astonishes me. You can't say that you care about someone and then not take care of the people that are put in place to care about them. I don't understand how that works. You can't tell the parents that we're going to see about your children, but we haven't had a charter program work yet in the state that's seen about our children. At what point, when you're asking most of our teachers to accept $10,000 in pay cuts, but then you can increase your payments from anywhere from $210,000 plus $70,000 in perks, that's $281,000 in a pay increase. Dr. Ferebee's requests are outrageous, and we're asking our senior teachers to take 50 cents or less per hour. 50 cents or less. And we're talking about teachers that have been in this program for 20 plus years. It would have been cheaper to get an auctioneer to come in and sell our real estate. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Delanier. I don't know if I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm sorry if I did not.
I want to make sure that I give copies to the board simply because I'm fully aware you probably have these. This is part of the reason why in which you said you are hiring Dr. Ferebee. I don't want to use any of my time trying to get the greeting in, but I want to make sure that this is given because it saddens me to think after 16 years of trying to be a very good teacher that I'm trying to come back from working with preschool, can't get hired because I do not want to take pay that I received in 2009. I've already taken a pay cut to work with preschool. I love preschool. And if it weren't for some recent events, I would continue to work with preschool. So I want to make sure that this is given because it's very important to me that the board receive this. It won't be necessary, I don't believe, to give it to anyone from the North Carolina group because they've worked fairly extensively with our superintendent. So they are already aware that he had a plan of action that he presented before the Guilford board to improve school, some of which was to make sure that the schools had adequate staffing. Teachers that may have left, instead of having long-term subs, making sure that they had experienced teachers in there, making sure that the subs were provided as needed, making sure that there were tutoring groups that were available when we're trying to improve scores. None of these things were brought to us at 69. None of these things were brought to us at 44, but yet our school is closing. So I want to read this, and at the bottom you will see, for those of you that did not get the handout, you will see the actual website where you can pick up the proposal for better schools in Guilford County. According to the board, I was reading through the board information, he was hired to turn schools around. Many often agree that the public schools has needed help of its schools to ensure the current and future success of its students. The virtual premise of selecting our current superintendent and allowing him to bring his personally selected cohorts from his home state of North Carolina was then to utilize their skills to turn around low-performing schools. Additionally, it was expected that he would that his well-paid six-figure team would closely work with the building administrators. It is unfortunate that he and his team have chosen to abandon this mission. Ferebee and his team have taken hard-earned taxpayer money and sat down on their job they were contracted to do for the IPS students and the IPS families. They have chosen an easier route of playing high-risk games with the lives of students and school staff.
Thank you, ma'am.
They have succumbed to buying out this school and giving it away. And I say to you today, all board members, I say to you, all of his cohorts,
thank you. Your time
we
has
welcomed
expired.
you here to do a job, to prepare our school to move forward. I'm at 44. I am displaced.
Please be respectful to others. And
I'm being respectful. And
we have a lot of people
I will
signed up to
close
speak.
out in just a minute. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please briefly
Thank
conclude.
you. It would be very brief.
Okay, thank you.
I say to all of you, when you look in the mirror in the morning, say, did I come to make IPS better, or am I here for gains for myself? Thank you.
Thank you. The items included on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
We have no speakers. Oh, I see. Okay, gotcha.
Reviewing the treasurer's report for the month of January. Do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Commissioner O'Connor provided an update from our Finance Committee at Tuesday's agenda review session, and there is no action required from the board at this time. And so I will now, hopefully, turn the agenda over to Dr. Ferebee.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Madam President. There are several items that the administration presented to the board for superintendent reports. Before I go into those items for a quick review, I do want to personally thank Alan for his performance tonight and personally apologize to him for the disturbance before his performance. We presented to the Board of School Commissioners a report on Naviance implementation, an update on the IDOE accountability model, and we had our charter partner Innovation School for Charter Schools USA present their first semester update or mid-year update. We also provided preliminary budget information. A couple points I want to highlight as it relates to preliminary budget information. We provided some projections for enrollment during that time, and I just want to clarify that those were very preliminary and conservative projections that were developed related to funding and not total enrollment. So, for example, preschool enrollment would have not been included in those figures, alternative education, career technical education, other services that we provide. And so the total enrollment for 16-17, we believe, including all this population, would be around 30,779, an increase of about 370 students over 2015-16. It's important to note, again, that there's several student groups that comprise our enrollment, which includes our traditional student population, our choice population, our innovation schools, our turnaround schools that are currently operated and managed by the Department of Education, which has been had others manage those schools. And so again, that total enrollment would be approximately 30,779 we're projecting for the 16-17 school year. It's important to note also that we also have influencing factors such as low birth rates. For example, birth rates have decreased from about 15% from 2010 to 2014. And also affordable housing continues to be a concern for us. For example, in 2014, there were 411 demolition permits in Marion County, and 63% of those were in IPS. So affordable housing continues to be a concern for us in our ability to have housing for families. It's also important to note in 2014 there were over 4,000 residential building permits in Marion County. However, only 37% of those were in the IPS boundaries. As it relates to our choice programs, we continue to address those programs that are high interest. For example, we were able to take over 300 students from our wait list for the CFI programs and have students enroll in the new CFI program on the Nicholson campus. We've also been able to increase our preschool enrollment from the 2014-15 year to the 2015-16 school year. We've been able to increase our preschool enrollment from 600 to over 1,000 seats. So we'll continue to ensure that we are extremely aggressive with our enrollment efforts. I wanted to provide clarity. I believe some of the content that was provided for budget planning was connected to total overall enrollment numbers. I'm happy to have the administration or I entertain any questions on any of the reports provided at the agenda review session.
Dr. Ferebee, we're interested if we could possibly get some copies of some of the information that you just shared with us in terms of the numbers at some point.
Yes, we'll be happy to provide that information, and then we'll also post that information for the public.
Thank you very much.
Will that?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Bentley.
Will that information also be sent out to the media outlets that might be reporting on this?
Yes, we're happy to report that to the media.
Okay, because I think it would be nice for them to get that maybe tonight or tomorrow.
Next section is unfinished business. There's a policy item 3.01 that I'll look to Madam President to lead, and then there is a calendar correction that I'll present for action.
So this item is to update board policy to ensure that it is consistent with past practice and Indiana statute. And I would recommend that the 30-day waiting period for policy changes be waived, considering this proposal would simply ensure that our policy conforms to our practice and meets our legal requirements. So do I have a motion to waive the 30-day waiting period?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. And now, do I have a motion to approve the changes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments? Commissioner Cosby?
We're on 8.01, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm going to speak to this. So this amendment to board policy would make it possible for expulsions to be binding according to what the expulsion hearing examiner has decided. And while I have no lack of trust for our hearing examiner, we've seen quite a decrease in these cases, which is again wonderful. We've seen expulsions go way down, but I'm a firm believer that everybody should have the opportunity to be heard by someone else that might be unbiased or just a different set of ears. So I'm just informing the board that I cannot support this change.
Commissioner Bentley?
Dr. Ferebee, can you kind of walk through what the due process looks like for students as it stands? And then also, I mean, it's my understanding that this has been past practice through previous boards. It's been past practice probably, going back to, I don't know, 2005 or something like that. And so basically we're just trying to align what we're doing with the statute. And also, but if you could just go through the sort of the due process so that there's an understanding of how that works, that'd be great.
Yeah, so there's due process where students that are recommended for expulsion have an opportunity to go before a hearing officer, and if they're not comfortable with the decision or the recommendation by the administration at the school level, then they can grieve and request a hearing with our hearing officer that hears the cases for expulsion. So that is our process. You are correct. That has been our process for some time. So again, this is something that would be in alignment with how the district has done business over the past couple of years.
And if a family or if a student does not agree with the hearing officer recommendation, they certainly have the ability and the freedom to take that into the court system, correct? Like, if they did not agree with the hearing officer's recommendation, their due process doesn't end there. Is that correct? They have that ability if they wanted to.
Yeah, I would not want to speak to the legal ramifications outside of our procedures. We can have to get legal counsel to provide additional information, but I don't want to misspeak on that.
I believe our board administrator may have information on that topic.
Yes, that's correct. So the statutory expulsion appeal allows for a judicial review of expulsion hearings to establish that the school complied with all of the due process elements by statute. So that's correct. There is a judicial review in the absence of a governing body appeal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Cosby?
I'll just follow up by saying I don't understand why we would encourage families to have to pay to go to court when we can offer another hearing and prevent that additional expense. But, that's neither here nor there, I guess. I'm not going to support it anyway.
Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Hey, Lanier.
Yes.
Could you?
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Commissioner Bentley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cosby?
No.
Commissioner Eccles? Yes. Commissioner O'Connor?
Yes.
Commissioner Odle? And Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
The next item is item 8.02, is the correction for the calendar for the school year 2016-17. The recommendation that the Board of School Commissioners approve the corrected and revised calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next section is new business. The first item in new business is item 9.01, which is a field trip request. We request that the Board of Schools Commissioners approve the field trip request for Christmas Attucks High School as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Next item is item 9.02. This is a follow-up to the Commissioner's work sessions on the board's and the district's philosophical and functional imperatives for all IPS schools. Request that Board of School Commissioners approve this item as presented.
Motion to approve.
On 9.3?
No.
Second.
2.
Two.
9.02.
Yeah.
We have no action required on this item.
Oh. Set.
Sorry.
It was presented as information, but you can certainly prove it at your discretion.
Endorse it, maybe just.
Oh, okay. Well, so it has been seconded. Are there any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item is item 9.03. At the agenda review session on Tuesday, February 23rd, the administration presented term sheets that have been agreed to by Innovation School partners in preparation for continued discussion for final agreements for the upcoming school years. Request that the Board of School Commissioners approve the terms as presented for the Innovation School partnership with Global Preparatory Academy at Riverside School 44 as presented.
Dr. Ferebee, I believe we are going to hear public comment for both items 9.3 and 9.4 because we have a number of speakers and some of them haven't indicated which of those proposals they are speaking on this evening. So I believe at this time we will hear public comment on both 9.3 and 9.4. And our first speaker this evening is Nathalie Harris.
And I have copies for the board. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nathalie Harris, and I live in the IPS district. First, I would like to thank Dr. Ferebee and the board for listening to hundreds of parents coming to different meetings about how to better our neighborhoods as well as our communities. I really appreciate the time, effort, actions, and the fact that you listen to parents about what we want to see different for IPS. I believe our kids and our communities deserve a quality education as well as quality teachers. Let's do something different where we can meet the needs of our kids' education in order to make them competitive against other countries, because what we're doing is not working. We, as the largest school district in the state, also need to be competitive with the other township schools. IPS has graduated some incredible leaders and scholars. Some, like Andre Carson, Steve Goldsmith, Corey Wade, Bill Pete, just to name a few. I believe the district can and will be great again if we do something different. I am pleased with the direction of where IPS is headed. We have to do what's best for our kids. It isn't always what's easy, but it's what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail Robinson. Is Abigail Robinson here? Earl Scott.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Earl Scott, and my children go to IPS School 48. And I'm here tonight to say thank you for working to make sure that there are better options and choices for my family within IPS. You know, it's a messed up situation if you don't have choices in where your kids go to school. But let's face it, IPS have had some serious problems. Too many schools have D and F ratings, including my children's school, School 48. The district needs to improve parent communication and involvement. And I know personally that my children need to be challenged more and are often held back by children who are further behind in the same class. But I appreciate that you are trying to make things happen and making some progress when it comes to innovation schools. I do think that it's a good change from what the district has been doing. I know at School 44, if global prep comes in, the kids will have the opportunity to learn languages and have more hours to learn in the school day. Knowledge and education are valuable aspects of life, and no one can take that from you. And they are what lasts. There's definitely more work to do, but I do appreciate the fact that you guys are addressing the problems and not hiding their heads in the sand like some people do. Instead, you're making moves to make things better for our kids. And I would like to thank you, the board, and Dr. Ferebee. Please work hard to make sure that no child has to attend a D and F rating school. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Marshika Vertner.
Okay. Hello. Hi. My name is Marshika Vertner. Wait, I'm short. Okay. I have 3 kids at Joyce Kilmore 69. I'm here tonight to support making School 69 an innovation school run by Ken Desi. I really like that the planned school will include blended learning that will let the kids grow at their own pace and encourage communication and collaboration with other students. I thought that the thought of having 2 teachers in each class is amazing because all of my kids have had multiple teachers in 1 year. As soon as they got to know people, they changed. How are they supposed to learn like that? I'm excited that something is finally being done to help this school. It's past time. Thank you.
Thank you. Corliss Jester.
Hello, my name is Corliss Jester. I have a stepdaughter at John Marshall High School and one at School 58. I'm here to urge you to consider making some big changes at John Marshall, where they need to improve communication and staff, as well as acknowledge parents. As long as I've heard, they've been failing. They need to be open to anything. It's time to try something new. You have to give it a try. I don't care what type of school John Marshall becomes, something needs to change. Frankly, if IPS saw Marshall was failing the first year, something should have been done. Now it's been multiple years and it's time to make a change. The fact is, there are parents who care. Just because our numbers are small doesn't mean our voices aren't loud. The ones who do come out, we have the same goal, to see our children do better in school. I appreciate anything that can be done to help this happen. Thanks, and have a great one.
Thank you. Eugenia Murray.
Good evening, Dr. Ferebee and members of the board. My name is Gina Murray. You may recall that I was one of the parents who advocated for Project Restore in School 93. I'm here tonight to tell you I'm so grateful for Restore in our school. My kids have benefited tremendously from Restore. They look forward to the weekly testings and push their friends to get on the promotion board. It is a complete turnaround. The curriculum is hard, but the children are actually doing it. I love to see every child push that way. You'd be surprised what they can actually do. They work hard every single day, and I can see the change when I go into the school. It's focus-driven. I can tell the difference in the classes, and I'm not seeing the behavioral issues that used to be there before. Other children need the opportunity to have a turnaround and have access to schools like this. Schools need change, and if innovation means change, then I'm definitely behind it. I hope the board will make the right decision to turn our other schools around and make the kind of progress that School 93 continues to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel Zatanda.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Zitonda, Nzeitonda. I think it's very difficult to say it. I know that my last name.
Sorry if I got it wrong.
Good evening once again. I was born in Congo and grew up in Rwanda. I have been in Indiana for 5 months. My sister Denise is in 5th grade at Riverside 44. She's not getting enough support at the school. I am excited about Global Pre-Academy. If it's coming in, I hope it will be able to help her learning English and being comfortable in her lessons, perform well, and have a bright future in the United States as a newcomer. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Beverly Bush. After Beverly, Jason Johnson will be the next speaker.
Good evening to each of you. My name is Beverly Bush, and I'm here tonight to ask you to do all you can to make every child not only graduate, but is well educated.
Beverly, could you pull that mic down a little bit? There you go. Make sure everybody
Thank you.
can hear you. Thank you.
My niece attends Riverside 44. I've been a part of school programs, have attended meetings there, and I just want to say it is a school that is undergoing some needed changes. My hope is that every child leaves school able to read, write, and with some good math skills. They need to be able to function well in society when they get out of school. If they don't get those skills in school, where else are they going to get what they need? I was a part of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, and I've seen the power of education firsthand. I have a bachelor's degree, some other certificates, and pursue learning opportunities to this day. I want to ensure that kids are excited about learning again, just like I am. Anything you can do to help that happen and turn around failing schools is welcome and it is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Johnson and then Kevin Smith.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Ferebee. I am Jason Johnson, and I have a child at School 14. I also have children who attend charter schools. I am here as a supporter of great schools. I don't care what kind of schools they are. What matters is that our students learn what they need to learn. Kids need to be ready for real life and and all that's throws at them. I urge you to approve the Innovation Schools Agreement for 44 and 69 to help improve the schools in our neighborhoods. What we've been doing isn't working. Well, we need to try something new. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kevin Smith and then Megan Buckley. Mr. Smith here? So Megan Buckley.
Gayle, have to jump up every time.
Good evening. My name is Megan Bouckley, and I teach 4th grade at Riverside Elementary. This year has been rough at Riverside. Since the beginning of the year, many teaching positions have gone unfilled, some without long-term substitute teachers. This means that for children in multiple classrooms, there hasn't been much learning going on. Many staff members have resigned and others are out on FMLA. In spite of these staffing challenges, the team at Riverside has put in double duty to help our students grow, and we, teachers, students, and the entire Riverside staff, are working hard to have a strong finish to a challenging year. All that being said, I think our community deserves a new direction. When Mary Alma Carson presented her vision for Global Prep Academy to the Riverside team, I heard an approach to children's education that isn't currently available to many students in our city. Ms. Carson wants to prepare students to be global citizens through bilingual education, immersing them in hands-on learning to provide an expanded understanding of the greater world around them. I believe the hands-on experiences will foster more engagement for our students and allow for higher level thinking in all content areas. Ms. Carson's previous experience as a successful principal in Pike Township and her civic commitment to deepening her relationship with the Riverside community will be vital to the success of Global Prep Indy. I would strongly encourage parents and community members to reach out to her and get your questions about the school answered. As every single classroom teacher knows, transitions from one activity to another are tough. They require thorough planning, strong execution, and trust. For this new school in our community to be successful, it will require lots of trust building. For the parents of my students who are concerned about what will happen next year, please continue to talk with Ms. Carson and the Global Prep team until all of your questions are answered. Members of the school board, I urge you to support the Global Prep Indy vision for the Riverside community. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Perry, followed by Abby Robertson.
Good afternoon, good evening rather. My name is Sharon. My son attends the Joyce Gilmer School 69. Last time I was here, I was telling you about the problems that we had at Joyce Gilmer School 69. Tonight, I want to thank Dr. Ferebee and his staff for listening to what we had to say and everything we needed. They recommended Candenzi for our school for next year. I love the idea that they have for us. What I love about it is that they have 2 teachers in each classroom, and they also learning from the STEM curriculum. I love the changes that they're giving to our children at this school. Now, I've heard some very pushback from our outside communities. They say they love our kids. If they love our kids like they say they do, won't you go ahead and join on with Candenzi Academy? Our school has been failing for the last 4 years. If you really care about our kids, let's try something different, because what has been going on in the past has not been working. So please approve a Candenzi Academy for our kids. We need a change. Thank you for having the time to listen to me.
Thank you. Abby Robertson, followed by Kala Murtada. Is Abby here? Kala Murtada?
Thank you for this opportunity to make a few comments to the school board and to Superintendent Ferebee. My comments are threefold. I want to begin by very strongly objecting to a plan that does not bring innovative ideas to you, the Board of Commissioners, and was not presented adequately to the families and community in its present form. And I want to express deep concern for any further fragmentation of IPS, which is losing students every year, as Commissioner Odle indicated in your meeting on Tuesday. However, I want to go beyond objections and make 3 suggestions that may make a difference if considered by you. Educators, often in their attempts to improve schools, identify activities looked and worked at elsewhere and then bring them to the school, and they want to improve them. Looping, ungraded classrooms, blended learning, 2 teachers in a classroom, all of these are great ideas in particular contexts. The curriculum, however, has not been worked on with family members in the Martindale-Brightwood community, and the context cannot be imported from one area to another. I spent time in the neighborhood. This was done sitting at the counter in the principal's office, and I saw children being dragged into a room, into the principal's office, and I saw disturbing, very disturbing acts happening within the school. So I agree full and wholeheartedly with change needing to occur. At the same time, these are mental health issues, and as Dr. LeGrand has addressed, these kinds of things have to be dealt with in a very different manner. You cannot just export, you have to pay attention to the mental health issues that are occurring and must be dealt with in a very different way. On pages 47 through 59 in the plan, it speaks about very lightweight kinds of character building that's not addressing mental health issues. These are real. When a parent has been incarcerated, when a child is facing some difficult challenges, when all kinds of things are coming together, mental health and learning supports must come together. The research is clear about that, and it makes a significant difference in the learning outcomes. I also want to say that within the past 1 year, in less than a year, the assistant principal at 69 helped to increase the academic achievement at School 69 very quickly, and under the mentorship of 2 principals that were assigned by this administration. That principal, Ms. Pickett, began developing relationships with family members and community members, and yet that was overlooked. So, as an alternative to being able to go on with business as usual, we want to offer an alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria Wheaton.
Good evening to Dr. Ferebee and the school board. I am a staff member at Joyce Kilmer 69, and I am excited about the change to Kendesi. The thing about being a failing school and doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, a lot of people know that a different change needs to happen. And some of the staff are excited to have the change to Kendesi. There is a need for stable leadership in our school. There is a need for a tuition-free school in this neighborhood that focuses on the STEM curriculum. The 2 teachers in a classroom will help with classroom management and the discipline. Also, the Leader in Me program, we believe, will help boost the morale of the children in the neighborhood and also within the community, to let the children know that they are leaders right where they are. They don't have to grow up to be leaders. They already are leaders. And to empower them, because there are some very specific needs in our community. We think that the online curriculum with the small groups will help to focus more so those children can have those individual times that they need to help bring up and make that quantum leap to get it. For some of those children, to help them to connect with the curriculum and get them to where they need to be. They need that one-on-one attention. The less breaks that the school offers will give the children more of a chance to help retain the information that they are learning to help them be more successful. All children deserve a good education no matter where they live. And it shouldn't be about IPS versus charter, but about giving our children what they need so they can be successful, so they can compete on a global scale. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe at this time that completes all of our speakers on these 2 issues. So we're going to first consider a motion on 9.3, the agreement of the term sheet, support for the term sheet with Global Preparatory Academy.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments?
I just have a question.
Go ahead. Sorry, Commissioner Cosby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make some comments here at this point in the agenda. I'm really, really glad to hear from this number of parents. And I thank you all for coming out and offering your perspective on what you've heard in the school and what you've learned about the prospective programs for your schools. I hear you. I really do. I hear you. I'm a parent too. I'm an IPS parent. I'm a product of IPS. And I got to tell you, if my kid was in a failing school, I'd be right where you are. I'd be down here moving mountains to get my child's school either improved or whatever needed to happen. So I want you to know I completely understand. I'm going to support the measures to explore the terms, but I do need to share some concerns. I'm a little torn on this issue. I think if you followed the school board, you probably know that I'm the one that's usually dissenting or voices concerns, so probably no surprise there. But I just would encourage the parents to think about accountability for the district and what that might mean. So you're in a school, your child's in a school that's been failing for several years. And I think that's the case with these particular schools. At what point do you say, what could have been done 3 years ago? What could have been done 4 years ago? And why wasn't it done 3 or 4 years ago? My concern, parents, is the idea of quick fixes. Duct tape doesn't always fix stuff, right? And to me, this is duct tape. And I want to support you, right? Because I know where you're at. You're at a place of desperation. Your kids are in a failing school, and I understand that. But to me, this is duct tape, and my prayer for you is that it's not leaking again in a year or two. And I hope you hear me, okay? That's all. I'm gonna support it, but I'm supporting it with a bit of caution in my voice. Y'all hear me, right? And why do I have this caution? I gotta say, you know, at this place in my life, I'm a student again, and I'm a student of education. So these are the things I'm concerned about every day. And from what I have seen, there's data to support some charter schools, there's data to not support others. Just like IPS, right? We got some A schools, we got some F schools, right? So to me, this is a little bit of a gamble, but believe me, like I said, it's an act of desperation. And if you're at that place where you're ready to take a gamble, y'all go ahead and I'll back you on that. But a couple years down the road, remember, accountability. Change can come from within as well. And I think you need to start holding members of this district accountable for thinking outside the box and not looking for other people to do it for them. That concludes my comments.
Any other comments? Commissioner Bentley?
I just had a couple comments. This is my second tenure on the board. I was served on the board from 1998 to 2010, and it's now 2016, and we're having the same conversations that we had in 1998. I was a firm believer then, and I still believe we have some of the best teachers in the state of Indiana in this district. We have some of the best schools in the state of Indiana in this district. And when I initially ran for the board, I believed that we had some great schools in this district. They could all be great. And so now we're fast forwarding to 2016, and we still have challenges with failing schools and a lack of accountability. That doesn't mean that these schools don't have huge challenges. That doesn't mean that these schools don't have some great people working in them that are working really hard. But it's time to try something new. I think, as my colleague said, all of the people up here on this dais, if we had students in a school that was failing, if we had students in a school where there wasn't consistent leadership, if we had students that were in a school that didn't have that were struggling with a revolving door of teachers, we would not be in that school. And so we can't sit up here and expect something else of our parents. I mean, we have to have great schools in every neighborhood in IPS, regardless of the zip code. And it's time to try some new things. I'm very excited about these proposals. I cringe when I hear people say that there's somehow going to be a lack of accountability. This school board will still control those schools. We will have a contractual agreement with them. There will be very specific goals, that those schools have to achieve. I think that is, in my personal belief, we should have that for every school in the district. Someone said, mentioned why didn't happen 3 years ago or 5 years ago. I don't know the answer to that. I think part of it is we tend to put the interests of adults ahead of the interests of children. And in my mind, these two proposals put the interests of children first. So I'm enthusiastically supportive.
Commissioner Arnold.
I have a question and then a comment and I don't know whether Dr. LeGrand or Dr. Ferebee would be able to answer this. But when we're talking about special ed and mental health services, how will that differ with these schools? Will IPS still provide those types of services, or how does that get integrated into the innovation schools?
Commissioner Arnold, those are types of terms that we agreed to in our innovation agreement. In many of our innovation agreements, IPS continues to provide special education services. IPS continues to provide nursing, social work service at the level that we have previously. So by no means do we anticipate compromising those services that families and students need in innovation schools or any school across the district. So I just want that to be clear. And to ask the question, I would just remind commissioners that the sole focus of this administration has been to eradicate low-performing schools. We've been able to do that with multiple strategies. We've been able to cut the number of schools in half that were G&F rated 2 to 3 years ago, but we know we have a lot more work to do. And that's not going to be one strategy. There's no magic pill, there's no panacea to school improvement for chronically low-performing schools. So what we do have is a process in which we identify schools that are struggling, we provide intensive support, and we have proactive measures in place to prevent schools from getting to this point. And so, you know, as we have these conversations, I just want to remind commissioners about what our strategies have been, the progress that we've been able to achieve, and our plans to continue to ensure that we address our schools that have been persistently underperforming. I appreciate the families and the parents here tonight raising the concern, and definitely we want to be held accountable for all of our schools and their performance, and the performance metrics for all of our schools is very clear, whether it's traditional, innovation, choice, or what have you. We have the same expectations for all schools.
The only thing I wanted to add as it pertains to mental health, Dr. Murtada mentioned conversations I've had with community members around that issue and that concern and that need within IPS. So we do realize that there's a need to enhance our work in the area of mental health services for our students, and once those programs are enhanced for our schools, we're including the innovation schools. So it won't just be enhanced for the schools that are not innovation schools. As we continue to make progress and have improvements, as we're looking currently at our mental health services, it will also involve our innovation schools.
Thank you. And my comment is, I too would like to thank those parents that came out tonight. It's difficult. This isn't an easy place to come to. You have to park. Many of you brought children, which is great. But it's important, and I very much appreciate your effort. I think I'm also excited that at least there was one teacher from each of those schools tonight that talked about their excitement about the change of the programs. And that's very hopeful for me, because I know there's a lot of issues about displacing teachers, but it sounds to me like that there's opportunities for teachers who are currently at these schools that buy in and believe in this new philosophy offered at each school, that it's going to be good for the children. So I very much appreciate them taking their time and coming out as well.
Can I ask?
Madam President, just one additional comment. I know it was asked, you know, why don't these things happen? Why don't we have interventions? Why don't we take measures to improve low-performing schools? And oftentimes I remind the board and the community is when you get to the point of change and making significant moves in the schools to improve school achievement, oftentimes we run up against some of the adversity or the barriers that we've seen in these discussions. And so that is one of the reasons why it doesn't happen, is because change is difficult and change is hard. But this administration, I know this board is committed to ensuring that we make those steps when it's necessary. And I believe in these two schools, based on where they are now, it's necessary that the district look to other options as it relates to improving student achievement.
Commissioner Bentley.
I did have a question, because I mean, we're dealing with both of these at the same time, right?
No, we're dealing with 9.3, and then we'll take a...
Oh, okay, well, never mind. It's about 9.4.
Any other additional comments?
Just
yes.
One, I too want to thank everybody. I just saw one kid who I think must have asked his mom how much longer you all were going to be here, and the answer must not have been good because he gave the distressed look. But one, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I think, you know, we as a board, I haven't been here for a long time. I'm relatively new. This board is committed to making sure that every family and every child has access to a high quality education, regardless of their economic situation, or any of their other situations they face at home. And if you're a parent who's been facing a failing school for years, you have a right to expect that we act with immediacy. And that's what, I think a month ago I said, we can't fail, we cannot fail our kids any longer by worrying about not moving fast enough. We have to move faster. So I'll be supporting this, and I'll be supporting the continued changes to make that high-quality education available to everyone in the school district.
Commissioner Cosby.
One last thing I want to add, that parents in the room especially, one of my concerns, I'm just going to share quickly, okay? The folks up here are elected. Y'all vote for them, right? Every 2 years, depending on where you live, one of us is on the ballot somewhere in some part of the city. One of my concerns about these partnerships is that as we partner with outside agencies, those outside agencies, ladies and gentlemen, they got their own board. So contract notwithstanding, which we do have a contract with them, and there are certain things that are outlined, and that's great. But there is another entity that ultimately, at the end of the day, makes the decisions for that school. So while you can still maybe reach out to us and we might be able to help you, my concern as a commissioner who represents constituents who vote for me to be here is that I don't have the same locus of control in those buildings as I would if it was an IPS school. So I need y'all to understand that, okay? The other part that I'm going to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I think you might need to understand, these companies, charters, innovation network schools, they're either for-profit or they're non-for-profit, okay? We work with a for-profit, openly for-profit charter school company, Charter Schools USA, which I find appalling that they operate for profit. However, understand that just apply a business model to school. Where's the profit coming from? Where do they squeeze that money from? It's from your child's classroom. It's from your child's extracurricular activities. So just think about these things and I'm not saying, I'm going to support it, I already told you I would, but I need y'all to think about these things. Be critical. Public education is public for a reason. It's not intended to profit off of. You should not apply a business model to the concept. And I don't support that. So just so you all understand where my concerns lie and why I do what I do. Thank you.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? Now we'll consider item number 9.4.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Bentley.
There were a couple of comments during the comment portion about Kendesi being affiliated with a network of charter schools in Atlanta. They are separate entities, right? It's a local.
That's correct. Those are separate entities. This is a local school.
Okay. And then also all of our innovation schools, and actually I think we have a board policy that we are not going to be entering into agreements with for-profit entities, that the Charter School USA situation was really because that's, it was involved with the state board and their management of some of those schools was part of that, right?
That is my understanding. I'll defer to Zach. I wasn't here at that point, but that's my understanding of the current policy for the board.
Is that the current policy, Zach?
That's correct. The current policy prohibits the engaging with a for-profit partnership. In the situation with CSUSA, that policy was waived related to the circumstances of the state takeover of that school.
Okay. I just think it's really important that...
That's Arlington.
No, that's Manuel and Amadonna. Anyway, but I just think it's really important to make that distinction. You know, I'm not a huge fan of for-profit. I'm not a fan at all of for-profit education because I have the same concerns that have been voiced. But I think it's important to acknowledge that that is not the case with our innovation network schools or any partnership that the district might enter into with outside educational organizations. So I just think that's really important. As far as the accountability, you know, the IPS board is not giving up any oversight of these schools. We are still responsible for every school in Indianapolis public schools, including the innovation schools. We are not in any way giving that up. And I think that's important to be very clear about. Thank you.
Commissioner Arnold?
And just to piggyback on that, the children who attend these schools are IPS children. We're not giving schools away to educate other children. These are our children. We're working very hard to create positive learning environments so that these children can succeed academically.
That's correct. Any student in an innovation school is a part of IPS's enrollment, is a part of our performance, and so they are all a part of our IPS family.
And as a board, we don't actually oversee the day-to-day operations of any of our schools. That's not within the purview of what we do, correct?
Correct.
Additional comments? All in favor of the resolution as presented?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next agenda item is item 9.05, contract services for substitute teacher staffing. Madam President, are there any public commenters on this item?
We need a motion, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Are there any comments?
I have a couple questions.
Sorry. Commissioner Bentley?
I know I asked a couple questions the other night about this, but I just, what's the, how long is the contract term? And, you know, if we get 6 months into this and it's just not working the way that we were hoping that it was going to work, are we able to get out of that contract?
Dr. Hester?
Yes. The contract just goes through June 30th. So we will have a period of time where we can make appropriate assessments in terms of delivery of services.
So it's just through June 30th this year?
That's correct.
So this is really more like a pilot?
That's right.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Arnold?
The word that I've heard is that all of the previous subs or teachers, retired teachers or whatever we have are going to be shut out, and this is going to be a whole new group, and we're putting people out. Can you explain how people who are currently in our sub pool will be integrated into this contract?
Yes, all current substitutes will transition into parallel education's program. So no one will be displaced unless they so choose to not work any longer. And they will also receive the same rate of pay they're receiving now.
So this is just more of a managing how people call in, and they'll be responsible for filling vacancies, which potentially is better than some schools now ending up with no subs and having to move children around.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bentley?
Sorry, I had one more question. And I asked this the other night too, but I wanted to just confirm it. We have a lot of substitutes out there. They have their they like to sub in one building and one building only.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of principals that covet their substitute teachers because once you have a good one, you don't want to let them go. Mm-hmm. There'll still be that kind of flexibility under this new process.
Yes.
Principals still have, okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's not changing.
That will not change.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor of approving the agreement as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries.
The next agenda item 9.06, which is the teacher performance grant. We ask that commissioners approve the distribution of the performance grant as outlined in your materials.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Commissioner Cosby?
I know we don't control this. I guess I just feel the need to say I wish it was more. I'm sure we all feel that way. Teachers, you know, we're trying, but that money came from the state, I believe. That wasn't an amount that we determined as far as I'm aware.
If I might add on to Commissioner Cosby's comments, we were told Tuesday night, I can't remember the difference between last year's and this year's or the amounts. It's substantially less than last year from the state, correct?
If Minnie Steigel's in the room, she may be able to answer that.
Tiptoeing up.
Sorry, Mindy.
You asked about the difference amount? Yeah, the formula changed and the parameters changed slightly at the state level. So, and then they use a calculation based on performance and growth in the schools, among other things, to allocate the money. And that's an original pot of dollars set at the state budget. And then it depends on how many schools qualify across the whole state. So that pot is set, and then they divvy up the money depending on how schools perform, grow, through different districts, so that number is constantly changing.
So our number this year is 416,000. Do you remember what it was last year?
I do not. Yeah, I can email it.
Find out.
Okay.
Any other comments?
And I think for clarification, what we talked about on Tuesday was there is another pot that will be coming later on that will be divided up among the highly effective.
That's correct. There's a different grant, and that, again, that's set in the budget process the year prior, and that statewide amount is just $2 million versus I believe this one was $30 million divvied up. So
all of our IPS teachers who are rated as highly effective will be getting a little something, something.
No, we proposed a grant proposal in the fall, and it's allocated. You're supposed to propose money for highly effective teachers in retention, around retention strategies, and then highly effective teachers in some teacher leadership. And it's a competitive grant, so we won't hear if we receive it until May. And we targeted some of the retention strategies around those transformation zone schools. So those, we've made a huge investment in those schools, so we really targeted the retention strategy to those particular schools of highly effective teachers. I think what we found last year was that the money that was allocated from that particular grant didn't do much for retention, and it was a very small, it was kind of like this, it was a very small grant amount. So I asked for a larger amount in a much more targeted way, and then explained in the grant that if it worked, we would expand it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor of distributing the grants funds as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam President, I will look to you for item 9.07.
Thank you. Item 9.7 relates to an expulsion appeal held in an executive session on Thursday, February 18th. As this matter relates to confidential information protected by law, there will be no public discussion of the matter at this time. Only those commissioners who participated in the appeal hearing should vote on this item. In addition to myself, Commissioners Arnold, Bentley, and O'Connor were present at the hearing. Do I have a motion to uphold or overturn the administrative expulsion determination in this case?
So moved.
To
uphold.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
The next agenda item is item 9.08, which is a litigation settlement. We ask that the Board of Commissioners approve the settlement agreement as presented, specifically resolution number 7697.
So moved.
Second.
Item 9.8 relates also to a confidential settlement agreement that has been presented and discussed in executive session. There will be no public discussion of this item at this time. Do I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement as presented in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Next item is item 9.09. We'll turn to Madam President to lead discussion on this item.
Yes. Item 9.9 relates to an extension and modification of the employment agreement with the superintendent. The board has reviewed and discussed the proposed terms in several executive sessions and held a public hearing on February 16th to receive public input on the proposed modifications as required by law. Tonight, we will also have several speakers who would like to speak on this topic. So I would call at this time Andrew Poley.
Thank you. While we're having a discussion about awarding the superintendent a bonus and a raise that is roughly equal to a teacher and a half, why are we having a discussion about extending the contract of our superintendent? Has the job he has done been that spectacular? I'm only a teacher, a proud tech titan, so I'm well aware that I'm not privy to everything that goes on in the ivory tower at 120 East Walnut Street. But I know what I see and what I experience on a daily basis. I know what I read from the fine journalists at Chalkbeat and at the Indy Star, Mr. Weddle. That may not provide a ton of context, but let's look at the issue from a lowly teacher's perspective. These 3 schools are currently without permanent principals, including school number 43 that is now on their 4th principal this year. Schools have numerous teaching vacancies. 75 resignations and retirements on this personnel report alone? Teachers are leaving IPS like rats from a sinking ship. Meanwhile, the rats that chewed a hole in the boat to begin with are congratulating each other and voting to give the biggest rat of all enough cheese to feed all of us. In an age in which there's a teacher shortage, IPS is bleeding teachers. The board and the superintendent's answer is to negotiate a lousy raise with the toothless union that did not even cover the cost of living for the years we were frozen, nor did it take into account the years of experience gained while frozen. Suspensions are down. But why? At the beginning of the year, a student assaulted a teacher in broad daylight in a hallway of our school because she told him he couldn't ride his hoverboard down the hallway. He was back the next day. Meanwhile, we've had days where we were instructed to send every kid on campus that is not in dress code to a holding area. That ended up being the auditorium because there were literally hundreds. And these were kids that were actually in class trying to learn. Many, but not all, of them were suspended for a day. Apparently the same punishment they get for assaulting a teacher. There is no consistency in discipline, no method to the madness. Restorative justice is an amazing concept, but not when implemented haphazardly, in a half-hearted fashion, and with not enough personnel to effectively use it. And certainly not when teachers were given a whole 1-hour PD to learn and acquiesce to a system that is totally foreign to us. Our superintendent is being nationally recognized for a reduction in suspensions that is completely and totally inflated. Simply not allowing school administration to suspend students is a very different and non-productive solution than addressing the underlying issues for bad behavior. In my opinion, this is borderline negligence and creates a hostile and possibly dangerous working environment for students, faculty, and staff. It is a matter of when, not if, someone is very seriously injured or killed at one of our schools. In short, we are disrespected, underpaid, overworked, labor in an environment that is unsafe, and charged to teach kids that are not invested in their own education, due in large part to the incredible amount of disregard the central administration has for them. I hear you. I'll be done.
Please be respectful to other people who have signed up to speak tonight.
The truth is that this board and its superintendent had an opportunity to take this district in a very different direction. One that doubled down on its teachers and students, that tried to reinvigorate us proletariat, one that rejected the charter school money and the billionaire interests that are so invested in a corporate ed reform
This is not my IPS. You all are responsible for the destruction of this
Excuse me.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
Your time has
I'm
expired. Thank you.
Well, Ralph
Thank you,
Taylor.
sir.
Ralph Taylor?
Good evening, Commissioners. As a concerned citizen, as an IPS graduate and former IPS teacher, I want to share my thoughts on the proposed pay raise and contract extension for Superintendent Ferebee and the possible accompanying bonus for his leadership team. I'm a firm believer in performance evaluations and raises and bonuses based upon performance. However, after reading the January 6, 2016 Chalkbeat Indiana report on the proposed raise and contract extension for Superintendent Ferebee, I see several disconnects which concern me about the proposed raise and bonus and contract extension. One, our overall 2015 graduation rate only had a slight jump from 71.8% to 72.1%, which is still below the state's rate of 88.9%. Moreover, 2/3 of our schools are rated as a D or F by the state based on student test scores. Third, though we have the state's top performing school on ISTEP, 4 of the 10 schools statewide with the biggest drops in their passing rates were from IPS, and 6 of our schools had fewer than 10% of their students pass ISTEP. Our non-magnet elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools are in chaos, and that's not just simply a teacher problem. We have ongoing racial tensions between black and brown students at some of our non-magnet middle schools and high schools. Having been in several of our non-magnet schools for more than a drive-by visit or a photo op, I witnessed firsthand what teachers have had to deal with in terms of insufficient support from various factions starting here at the Ed Center, and having to deal with students who have mental health issues that have led to constant classroom disruptions where you have 40 students in a classroom with one teacher. I've seen classrooms where 6th graders are sent to kindergarten and first grade classrooms when their class is not staffed on a short or long-term basis because substitute teachers do not want to go to some of the IPS schools. There are other disconnects, and there are numerous positive stories that IPS has to share. However, I believe the disconnects do not warrant a performance bonus exceeding the $21,000 Dr. Ferebee received last year, and also believe that there should not be a creation of a new bonus pool for members of the leadership team to provide a bonus equal to what our superintendent receives. Instead, the leadership team should receive a pay raise which equals that of teachers who are in the trenches trying to be difference makers for our youth. I'm not sure what the expectations are for Dr. Ferebee, but when I look at these disconnects, I don't see this individual receiving a bonus of $25,000 or more. And if we're concerned about Dr. Ferebee's leaving, how do we know he's not going to leave when you award him this proposed large grant that you're talking about?
Thank you. Stephanie Devine. I'm sorry, Stephanie Devine. Doreen Moore. Believe that, oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning, Madam President and fellow commissioners. I've been up here before and I spoke about this same issue. I don't have to be long to be strong about what I have to say, but I do want to equate Dr. Ferebee's supposedly raise to a NFL quarterback who wants all the money but don't want to spend anything on his line or his receivers. What ends up happening is he finds himself all alone and getting sacked and hurt. And in this case here, it appears that he's going to take a few people down with him, because if he does get this raise, there's going to be a strong push to vote a lot of these guys up out of here. That means you guys. And I am most definitely want to be ahead of that charge, because I don't appreciate him putting his own self-interest ahead of the interest of my child or anybody else's child in that matter. Because to me, the children should come first. Thank you.
So I believe that's all of the public comment. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution accepting the modification as presented?
So moved.
Are there any comments? Discussion on the motion. O'Connor.
I appreciate everybody's comments, and I again appreciate everybody being here. I was a very young child when my parents took me to Washington, D.C. to make sure I saw some protests, and they wanted to remind me that being able to participate in your government is the greatest form of democracy. And so I appreciate that. You may disagree with the decisions we make regularly, but we very much need to hear from you, particularly when you disagree with us. So I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I did just a little bit of research within Marion County from the various township school systems or other Beech Grove and Speedway school systems, and that the ranges on base salary, IPS base salary we're proposing is a $209,000 base salary. They range from a low of $168,000 to our proposed $209,000. The all-in range averages out to be about $230,000. A more appropriate comparison for this school system is the Fort Wayne school system. And we go back and forth with that school system and this school system being the largest in the state. The base pay for the Fort Wayne superintendent is $233,400. Now, I'm not absolutely certain I'm comparing apples to apples because I'm getting information off publicly available sites. But it is within a range that I think is competitive. And again, you all may disagree with this, but I have been on the board since mid-September. I am pleased with the aggressive action we're taking to make changes. I am pleased to support this effort. I think continuity is incredibly important, particularly as we're making changes at the school level, at the instructional level, and I think it's important that we stick with the changes we have embarked upon. So I thank everyone, and to our last speaker, I appreciate what you had to say, and that is exactly what accountability is about. We make decisions, sometimes they're tough decisions, and we'll live with them. So I will be voting in favor of this.
Commissioner Cosby?
Commissioner O'Connor, I appreciate the comparison. I just want to lift up to you in the audience that the superintendent of Fort Wayne Public Schools has been in place for about 18 years. So in my mind, quite a difference between someone who's been on board for 2 years and someone who's been on board for 18 years. The rest of my comments were spoken by the people in the audience. Thank you.
Mr. Arnold.
Part of what we're approving is not automatic. It is based on performance that is yet to come. So there is some guarantee that these won't, they're predicated on some very specific, tangible goals that must be met. The other thing is on the compensation for the leadership team, that is not $35,000 for each one of those. That is a collective amount that would be divided if, indeed, Dr. Ferebee and the district met the goals that are required. I just want to make sure people understand that.
Commissioner Bentley.
I just have a few comments, and I want to echo what the other commissioners have said. I really, we do appreciate you coming here. It's sometimes painful. We want to make everybody happy, and we're not going to make everybody happy. So, as elected officials, that's sometimes difficult, but we have to make, we have to make hard decisions, and we're going to make decisions that some people are going to be really happy about, and we're going to make decisions that people aren't happy about. One of the most important things that a school board does is, we elected school board is, you hire a superintendent. I wasn't on the board when Dr. Ferebee was hired, but there are 2 members here that were on the board that hired him and supported him. And, and another part of our job that's important is to hold our superintendent accountable, to evaluate him, and to set very specific goals. The previous board to this board, set goals for our superintendent. He met most of those goals, and that's why he earned a bonus this year. When we were, we had 3 meetings where we discussed in great detail his evaluation. Most of us did. Some of us weren't at those meetings. And we discussed what the goals would be for the coming year, as well as his as well as the amendments, I guess, to his contract. All of that was predicated on our belief that he's doing a good job, that he is doing what we have asked him to do. We're not nearly where we need to be. We're not. Some people might think that's funny. I don't know. But we're happy with his performance so far. I mean, we're not nearly where we need to be, but we're getting there. And when he came in here, we were a struggling school district. We needed strong leadership that was going to take this school district in a different direction. He's making significantly less than the previous superintendent. And I think it's also important to point out in this contract, there is no buyout provision. There has been buyout provisions in superintendent contracts in this district for many years that's cost the district hundreds of thousands of dollars. There is no buyout in this contract, and I think that's important to note. Do we think, I'm just speaking for myself, but I'm sure everybody else agrees up here. Nobody thinks that teachers are making the money that they need to be making. We don't believe that. We thought that we were, we made an effort this year, and I just want to point out that while the raise that was received this year doesn't come close to making up for 5 years of a pay freeze, it was a raise that occurred in a year where we were taking a huge cut in our state support from the state of Indiana. And we figured out, and the superintendent led this, because we said we cannot allow our teachers to go another year without some kind of an increase. And so in a year where we were receiving millions of dollars less in state support, we were able to come up with that increase. I want to challenge the administration, over the next year, is figure out, how are we going to address some of the concerns that were voiced tonight. And I don't want to misspeak because I still don't understand some of the years of service and step increases that were missed during that 5 years. But we've got to figure out a way to address that, to introduce or to bring back some level of fairness in how we're compensating teachers. I agree that it is wrong that a teacher with 15 years experience is making less than somebody that's hired in that has 15 years experience. I agree that's a problem, and we need to figure out a way to address that. And so I'm hoping that over the next, the course of this year, we can figure that out. There's been a lot of criticism of the board on, wanting to move towards more autonomous schools and decentralization and student-based budgeting. All of this is, not just about trying to increase student achievement, but it's also about the reality that we are not going to be getting any large sums of money anytime soon. We're just not. And so we have to figure out ways to better allocate our resources so that we're driving more resources into the school level. That's not going to happen overnight. I mean, that's going to require a lot of training. It's going to require a whole mindset change. But we're moving in that direction. And I want to applaud the administration for moving in that direction quickly. I'm going to support this contract. I think the district is moving in the right direction. Do we have challenges in our schools? Absolutely. But I hear from teachers every day that are having a good experience in their schools. I know that we have some teachers that are not having good experiences, and those situations need to get addressed. So thank you.
Any additional comments? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll now have closing comments. I don't know if any commissioners have anything that they would like to touch on that they haven't been able to say. Yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner Arnold.
I would just like to note that I got a message earlier that the legislation that was talked about, 1004, has been defeated or is not going to be moving forward. So that sounds like that's good news.
Anyone else? Dr. Ferebee?
Yes, again, thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to participate in the meeting tonight remotely. It's an honor to be selected and represent IPS of the select group of superintendents and community leaders that will be gathered at the White House tomorrow for a national convening on summer opportunity for our youth. It's important for us to be at the table as we discuss enhancing summer meals, summer learning, summer job opportunities, violence reduction, all things that are impacting our Indianapolis community. We're proud that we have been able to provide summer meals, summer learning time, and we're partnering with Teamwork to provide summer employment. But we want to continue to learn best practice of what we can do to improve in this area. So again, I appreciate the opportunity, commissioners, to participate in this important conversation at the White House tomorrow. I also appreciate the opportunity to serve the Indianapolis community as superintendent. I echo Commissioner Bentley's comment about, compensation. No, we're not where we want to be, but we've made tremendous strides in a short period of time, in a time where the district has realized significant reductions in dollars in state revenue. We've been able to invest over $20 million in compensation for our employees. And so I firmly believe that we're on the right path. And there are teachers, based on the agreement that we have, that will realize a higher wage than others. That was intentional based on the agreement that we established with the IEA. So I look forward to coming back to the bargaining table with our bargaining unit as we go forward and prepare for the next budget season. And just remind our community that's frustrated with compensation that we all need to be rallied together to ensure that as biennium comes up and we discuss finances for state and education, that we're all at the table advocating for IPS, advocating for our employees. Again, I appreciate the approval tonight of the contract extension by our commissioners and the confidence. Look forward to serving the community. The leadership team is excited to serve the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ferebee. Having completed all items on the agenda, our next meeting will be our spring retreat on Friday, March 4th, beginning at 2:30 p.m. in the Arsenal building at Arsenal Tech High School. The meeting is adjourned.